You have become so good at surviving the waiting season that you may not have noticed the moment something changed. Chosen one, think about the last few weeks. A conversation felt different. Something you used to chase stopped controlling you. An idea returned with unusual clarity. Maybe a door did not fully open, but for the first time, it moved. And your first reaction was not celebration, it was suspicion. That is why this message matters. The greatest risk, after a long season of waiting, is not always that the answer never comes. Sometimes, the answer begins to arrive while your mind is still organized around disappointment. Before we finish, you will understand 3 important things. You will see why good news can feel strangely unsafe after years of uncertainty. You will discover the hidden delay between your circumstances changing and your expectations catching up. And you will learn how to separate true discernment from fear that keeps asking for one more sign. But there is something deeper underneath all 3. There is a version of you that learned how to wait. That version learned patience. It learned endurance. It learned how to survive days when nothing seemed to move. The real question now is simple. Does that version also know how to receive? You may recognize the first symptom already. Something promising appears, and instead of asking if it is good, your mind immediately searches for how it could go wrong. You reread the message. You replay the conversation. You look for the hidden problem. You tell yourself you are only being careful, but your body is already preparing for disappointment. That reaction does not automatically mean you lack faith. Repeated uncertainty can train your attention to search for danger before possibility. When that happens, caution can become automatic. You are not choosing fear on purpose. You are simply using an old pattern in a moment that may require a new response. Notice what has already changed in you. Maybe something that once destroyed your peace now only makes you pause. Maybe you stopped chasing someone who kept giving mixed signals. Maybe you finally slept before answering a difficult message. Maybe you said no without writing a long explanation. Those moments can look small. They are not. They may be evidence that your inner world is changing before your outer world fully catches up. You are becoming less reactive. You are becoming more observant. You are learning that peace does not always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of panic. So here is your first question. When something good appears, are you responding to what is happening now, or are you reacting to what happened before? Do not rush your answer. Let the question expose the pattern. This is why I want you to write one simple sentence in the comments. I am ready to receive. Do not write it as a magic formula. Write it as a decision to become present enough to see what is actually in front of you, because there is a point where patience stops protecting you and begins hiding something else. That hidden pattern has a name, and once you see it, you may finally understand why some doors felt open, yet you still could not step through them. There is a name for the pattern we just uncovered. It is the waiting identity. It begins quietly. At first, waiting is only something you are doing. You wait for an answer. You wait for a door. You wait for relief. But after enough disappointment, waiting can slowly become part of how you see yourself. Imagine this. Your phone lights up with a message you once prayed to receive. The words are positive. The opportunity is real enough to examine, yet your chest tightens. You put the phone down, walk away, then come back and read it again. You tell yourself you need more time. That may be true. But then you start searching for another sign. You ask someone else what they think. You replay every possible failure. You begin preparing for the opportunity to disappear before you have even decided whether it is right for you. This is the waiting identity at work. The season may have changed, but the identity remained. When disappointment repeats for long enough, the mind can start building a private rule. Nothing is safe until it has survived every possible test. Nothing is real until there is no chance of losing it. That rule once protected you. It stopped you from getting excited too quickly. It helped you survive broken promises. It gave you emotional armor when uncertainty felt unbearable. So do not attack the version of you that learned it. That version was trying to protect your heart. But protection has a cost when it stays too long. The same pattern that helped you survive one chapter can sabotage the next one. A shield is useful in battle. It becomes heavy when the battle is over. This is where the change begins. Ask one present tense question. What evidence belongs to today and what fear belongs to yesterday? That question does not force you to say yes. It does not tell you to trust everyone. It simply separates current facts from old pain. Suppose a new opportunity appears. Look at what is verifiable now. What was actually said? What has actually changed? What can you confirm? Then notice what your fear adds on top. Maybe your fear says this always ends badly. Maybe it says good things never last. Maybe it says you should disappear before anyone can disappoint you again. Facts speak about this moment. Old fear often speaks in absolutes. It says always. It says never. It says everyone. It says nothing changes. That difference matters because the present does not deserve to be judged entirely by evidence from the past. This does not mean every open door is yours. Some doors should stay closed. Some invitations deserve a no. Some promises deserve careful verification. Wisdom still matters. Boundaries still matter. But fear should not be allowed to impersonate wisdom simply because it speaks with confidence. Think of one recent moment when you did something differently. Maybe you waited before reacting. Maybe you asked a direct question. Maybe you walked away from confusion. Maybe you accepted help instead of carrying everything alone. That is not a small change. That is evidence that the old identity is losing control. Say this quietly to yourself. I see the difference. I see what belongs to today. I see what belongs to yesterday. I can slow down without disappearing. I can be careful without becoming frozen. Picture the next opportunity that arrives. You do not need to become wildly excited. You do not need to force a meaning onto it. You simply stay present. You breathe. You verify. You decide from what is true now, not only from what hurt before. That is the beginning of receiving, not blind belief, not reckless action, presence, clarity, choice. But waiting creates another delay, and this one is harder to notice because it often calls itself discernment. Discernment is not fear, with spiritual language added to it. Real discernment helps you see more clearly. Fear usually makes everything feel urgent, confusing, or impossible. It tells you to wait until every risk disappears. But certainty is not the same thing as clarity. This is where the second pattern begins. It is the receiving lag. Your circumstances can change before your expectations do. The door can move before your mind believes it. The conversation can improve before your body feels safe. An opportunity can become real while part of you still expects disappointment. That gap creates strange behavior. You receive a promising email, then spend hours reading it again. You ask 5 people what they think. You search for one more confirmation. You tell yourself that waiting proves wisdom, but you may be waiting for certainty that life rarely gives. The goal is not to rush. The goal is to stop confusing delay with discernment. So use 3 simple questions. Is this aligned with what I know matters? Is it verifiable in the real world? Am I delaying because of evidence or because I am afraid? The first question protects your values. The second protects you from fantasy. The third protects you from your own old patterns. Together, they create a more grounded decision. You do not need perfect certainty. You need enough clarity to take the next responsible step. This is why the story of Joshua matters here. There was a season of wilderness, and there was a moment when movement became necessary. The lesson is not that every viewer has a promised land tomorrow. A strategy can be right for one season and wrong for another. Patience can be holy when patience is required. But endless hesitation can become avoidance when a real decision is already in your hands. You can pray and still verify. You can move slowly and move. You can honor caution without handing your future to fear. Here is another clue. Fear often asks for impossible proof. It wants a guarantee that nobody will leave, nothing will fail, no money will be lost, and no choice will ever hurt. Discernment asks better questions. What is true? What is wise? What is mine to do next? That difference matters. Waiting for clarity can be wise. Waiting for certainty can become a prison. Life rarely hands you a document promising that every step will work. Most meaningful decisions give enough information for the next step, not the next 10 years. If this feels familiar, notice what is happening inside you right now. You do not need to force an answer. Just see the pattern. Maybe you have called yourself patient when you were actually afraid. Maybe you have asked for another sign because taking responsibility for a choice felt heavier than waiting. There is no shame in seeing that. Recognition gives you options. Once you notice the receiving lag, you can pause and ask whether your expectations are simply behind your circumstances. Check the facts again. You can ask one wise person instead of 10 anxious people. Then you can choose. If this distinction helps you, let the message settle before you react. You can also support this video if you know someone who keeps confusing fear with discernment. Sometimes one clear idea reaches a person when they are ready to use it. Now we reach the next layer, because sometimes you have checked the facts, you have prayed, you have reflected, you even know what the next step probably is, yet your mind still feels scattered, foggy, and unable to organize itself. That is important. Not every obstacle is spiritual. Sometimes the problem is not the message at all. Sometimes the receiver is simply tired. And when we understand that, a very different kind of solution begins to appear. Sometimes the message is not the problem. Sometimes the receiver is tired. You can know what matters and still feel scattered. You can understand the next step and still stare at the screen without moving. That does not automatically mean something is spiritually wrong. Stress can do this. Poor sleep can do this. Too many decisions can do this. Constant notifications can do this. When attention is divided for long enough, even simple choices can feel heavier than they are. The mind keeps switching, but nothing feels fully clear. Maybe you know this feeling. You walk into a room and forget why you came. You open a page, then forget what you meant to check. You read the same paragraph twice. You begin a sentence, then lose the word you wanted. Small moments like these can make you question yourself. Do not turn every foggy day into a spiritual diagnosis. Your body matters, your sleep matters, your stress matters, your attention matters. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is care for the condition through which you are trying to think. Try something with me now. Let your jaw loosen. Drop your shoulders. Notice your breath without forcing it. Notice your forehead. Then listen to the speed of the voice inside your mind. Is it calm, or is it trying to solve 5 things at once? You do not need to fix everything in this moment. Just notice. Awareness is useful because it separates the problem from your identity. Fog is an experience. Overload is an experience. Neither one has to become a verdict about who you are. Now hold one simple phrase. I receive with clarity. Not because clarity makes every answer obvious. It does not. Clarity simply gives you a cleaner place from which to examine what is true, what matters, and what your next responsible action may be. Think about how different a decision feels after a quiet night compared with the same decision made while exhausted. The facts may not change at all. What changes is your ability to hold them without being pulled in 5 directions. That difference is practical, not mystical. And this matters because receiving is not only emotional openness, it also requires enough attention to notice details, compare options, remember what matters, and choose, without letting noise make the choice for you. There is another reason I am asking you to notice this. Over the past several decades, researchers have explored how different regions and hemispheres of the brain process information and coordinate activity. The real science is more complex than the old idea that one side is logical and the other is creative. But the larger question is still useful. What conditions help the brain work with information in a more integrated way? What helps attention become less fragmented? And what happens when a tired mind is given a short period with fewer competing demands? Later, I will return to one unusual 8-minute audio application built around that general idea. I am not calling it a miracle sound. I am not asking you to believe a claim before you examine it. I want you to understand the problem first, then decide whether the tool makes sense for you. For now, keep the question open. What if part of receiving well is not asking for more signs, but giving an exhausted mind a better condition in which to notice what is already there? There is a name for the gap we are entering now. It is the receiver gap. You can understand something deeply and still struggle to act on it. You can have insight, intention, and even a clear next step while your attention feels too scattered to carry that step forward. People often explain this as laziness. Others call it weak discipline. In spiritual spaces, it can become a story about not believing enough. But knowledge, attention, regulation, and execution are not the same thing. Knowing what to do does not automatically create the condition to do it well. That distinction can change how you see your past. Maybe you kept searching for another answer because action still felt difficult. You watched another message. You saved another video. You wrote another page in your journal. The information kept growing, but movement stayed small. What if you did not need more revelation in that moment? What if you needed less interference? That does not mean every problem disappears when you rest. It means clarity deserves a fair chance. Before you search for another sign, create a small space in which the answer you already have can become easier to work with. Here is a free practice you can use today. Give yourself an 8-minute receiving window. Put the screen away. Stop switching tasks. Sit somewhere quiet. Headphones are optional. For those 8 minutes, do not try to solve your whole life. Choose one decision. Write it in one simple sentence. Then ask what is already known, what is still unknown, and what single action can be taken next. You are not forcing certainty. You are reducing noise around the decision. At the end, write one next step small enough to complete. Send the email, make the call, check the document, ask. A useful next step does not need to feel dramatic. This is agency. It is simple, but it matters. It also gives you a baseline. If 8 quiet minutes change how clearly you can see the decision, that tells you something useful about the role attention was playing. You are training yourself to move from endless intake toward clear response. Say this quietly if it fits. I release the noise. I do not need 10 new answers when one honest next step is already available. Earlier, I asked what happens when the message feels clear, but the receiver feels exhausted. We can close that loop now. The problem may not be a lack of meaning. The problem may be the condition in which meaning has to compete for your attention. This is the missing piece. Insight alone does not create movement. Waiting can shape identity. Fear can delay receiving, and mental overload can weaken execution. When those 3 patterns overlap, a person can feel deeply sincere and still remain stuck. Now the whole shape becomes easier to see. The reason is the waiting identity, the receiving lag, and the receiver gap. The practice is a present tense question, a grounded discernment filter, and a short receiving window. The final piece is the person you are becoming. You were trained to endure the weight. You are now learning how to carry what comes after it. And that is why I want to return to the research question I opened earlier, because there is an optional tool built around the idea of creating a more integrated listening condition, and now you understand the exact problem it is meant to address. Now, I want to close the loop I opened earlier. There is a line of research that helps explain why the condition of the receiver matters. In 1981, Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize for work involving split brain research and specialized functions of the two cerebral hemispheres. That research did not prove a product. It also did not prove that one side of the brain is simply logical and the other creative. The brain is more complex than that. But the work helped establish why coordination across brain systems matters when we process information and act. Before I name the tool, consider two customer reports connected with it. A woman from California described years of prayer, journaling, and meditation while still feeling emotionally distant. After using the audio, she reported feeling clearer and more connected in daily life. A man from Texas described mental fog and difficulty making decisions. After using the same audio, he reported feeling sharper and more organized. Those are personal reports, not guaranteed results, but they explain why this tool caught my attention. The product is called the Genius Switch. It is an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence that the team describes as neural sync technology. Their explanation is that the audio is designed to support coordinated whole brain activity through a structured listening protocol. The routine is simple. Use headphones, close your eyes, relax, listen for 8 minutes a day. There is no requirement to repeat a mantra, complete a long meditation, or spend hours learning a new practice. This is not a replacement for prayer. It is not a promise of a miracle. You do not need it to be worthy, chosen, or spiritually complete. Think of it only as an optional tool for someone who wants to support attention and clarity. The current product information lists the standard price at $49, with an additional discount bringing it to $39 on the official page. It also lists lifetime digital access and a money-back guarantee. Verify those terms before buying because offers can change. The package also lists 4 bonuses. They include a guided visualization, a grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a printable 5 habits infographic. The main reason to consider the offer should still be whether the 8-minute audio itself fits your needs. If you have tried other audio products, do not assume this must work because it sounds different. Evaluate the explanation. Consider your goals. If you test it, judge your own experience rather than another person's promise. One practical warning matters. The product file says official access is distributed through its own website, not through Amazon, YouTube, or Spotify. If you decide to look at it, use the official link in the description or pinned comment and check the current terms. The $39 price is described as promotional and may increase. That is the only urgency I want to place around it. Do not buy from fear. Do not buy because you think refusing it will block a blessing. Buy only if the tool, terms, and price make sense for you. Then return to the larger point. The tool is not the transformation. The goal is becoming a clearer receiver, someone who can notice what is true, make grounded decisions, and carry good opportunities without handing control back to fear. The product is not the destination. The real destination is the person you become when fear no longer gets the first vote. You can use a tool, a practice, a prayer, or a quiet morning, but none of those matter if you still believe every good thing must disappear. So, bring your attention back to the receiver. Imagine tomorrow morning. It is 7:15. Your phone lights up with an email you have been hoping to see. The message is promising. It asks for a response. This time, You do not feel the need to explode with excitement or collapse into suspicion. You read it once, then you breathe. You check what is real. You look at the details, confirm what needs to be confirmed, and let your body settle before you decide. There are no 27 tabs open. There are no 6 frantic phone calls. There is no need to turn one opportunity into a prophecy. That is what readiness can look like. Sometimes calm is not a sign that the opportunity is wrong. Sometimes calm is the evidence that you are no longer being controlled by the old pattern. You are present enough to see what is actually happening. This is where the shift becomes practical. You stop asking whether every event is a sign. You start asking whether it is aligned, verifiable, and worthy of action. You stop demanding perfect certainty. You start building trust in your ability to take one responsible step at a time. And if part of you is skeptical, keep that part. You do not need to force a supernatural interpretation onto every change. Even if you see this entire message through a practical lens, the patterns still matter. Waiting can shape expectations. Fear can imitate wisdom. Overload can weaken decision-making. That means you do not have to believe that something mystical happened this week for this message to help you. You only need enough honesty to notice whether yesterday is still making decisions for today. If the receiver gap is the part that felt most familiar, the Genius switch is available through the official link below for you to review. Look at the information yourself. Check the current price and guarantee. Decide only if it fits your needs. The larger work remains yours. Because clarity is not something you buy once and keep forever. It is something you practice. You protect your attention. You learn your patterns. You slow down when fear gets loud. You verify what is true, and then you move when movement is required. Think about what this changes in ordinary life. An email arrives, and you respond without panic. Someone gives you a clear answer, and you believe the evidence instead of inventing hidden meanings. A decision appears, and you do not abandon yourself while trying to predict every possible outcome. Maybe the opportunity is not dramatic. Maybe it is a healthier conversation, a cleaner boundary, a new responsibility, or the courage to finish something you kept postponing. Receiving does not always look like applause. Often it looks like enough inner steadiness to recognize what deserves your yes and what deserves your no. This is the person we have been building toward from the beginning. Not someone who never feels fear, not someone who always knows the future, not someone who receives everything they want. Something stronger is forming. Before we close, I want to name that person clearly. The final declaration is not about what is coming to you. It is about who you are becoming when something good finally reaches your hands. You are not only learning how to receive, you are learning how to steward. That word matters because receiving is only the beginning. Anyone can celebrate an open door for one afternoon. The deeper question is whether you can carry what is good without letting old fear destroy it. For a long time, the identity was simple. You were the one waiting. You were the one praying, enduring, hoping, and trying to understand why nothing seemed to move. Then the identity changed. You became the receiver, the person willing to notice what is here instead of living only inside what was lost. Now there is another step. The steward does not worship the blessing. The steward does not cling to it in panic. The steward pays attention, makes responsible choices, and remembers that something good does not become safer just because you squeeze it harder. Think about money. Stewardship does not mean a promise that wealth is about to fall into your hands. It means that when resources increase, you can make calmer decisions about them. You can pause before spending, check the facts, and choose from clarity instead of fear. Think about relationships. You do not have to chase every person who pulls away. You also do not have to disappear the moment closeness feels unfamiliar. You can ask a direct question. You can observe consistency. You can let another person show you who they are without writing the ending in advance. And think about your calling. There are moments when the next action is already visible. Send the proposal, finish the page, make the appointment, learn the skill, ask the question. You do not need the entire road illuminated before taking one grounded step. Now soften your gaze, or close your eyes if it is safe to do so. Picture yourself standing at a simple threshold. Behind you is a waiting room. You know that room well. It held uncertainty, old questions, repeated disappointment, and long nights when you could not see what was changing. In front of you is not a palace. It is ordinary life. There are emails to answer, people to love, decisions to make, bills to manage, work to finish, and moments that will still require courage. But something is different now. You are entering that life with a different posture. Take one slow breath. Let your shoulders fall. Place a hand over your chest if that feels natural. You do not have to pull the future toward you. You do not have to force a door open. You only have to stop dragging the waiting room into every new room you enter. Say this quietly: I can receive without fear. Not without wisdom, not without questions, not without boundaries, without fear being the ruler. Feel the difference between those two positions. The waiter asks when life will finally begin. The steward asks what this moment requires. The waiter looks for another confirmation. The steward checks what is true and acts with care. This is the identity underneath everything we have discussed. You are not being asked to become reckless. You are being invited to become present. You are not being asked to control the future. You are learning to carry the present with more clarity. And in the final moments, we are going to seal this shift with one declaration. It will not promise you money, a relationship, or a miracle on command. It will name something more useful. It will name the person who can meet what comes next. Before we end, give yourself one quiet moment. You have carried questions that did not resolve quickly. You have lived through seasons where patience was not inspiring. It was simply necessary. And whatever you believe about why those seasons happened, you can still honor what they taught you. Be grateful for the endurance that kept you moving. Be grateful for every boundary you learned to draw. Be grateful for the moments when you became more honest, more careful, and more willing to see reality as it was, instead of forcing it to become what you wanted. Now, take a slow breath. As you breathe out, release the need for endless confirmation. Release the old reflex that says every good thing will disappear. Release the belief that fear must be obeyed simply because it speaks loudly. You do not need to erase your past. You do not need to pretend disappointment never happened. You are simply refusing to let yesterday make every decision for today. This is your declaration. Say it slowly. I am no longer only waiting. I am learning to receive. I do not confuse fear with wisdom. I do not confuse delay with discernment. I can meet opportunity with clarity. I can carry what is good responsibly. I am not merely the waiter. I am the steward. And now, return to the question from the beginning. Who will you be when what you prayed for begins to appear? You will not need to become a different human overnight. You will not need perfect confidence. You will not need to know what happens 10 steps from now. You will need presence, honesty, discernment, and enough courage to take the next responsible step. That is why the waiting season cannot remain your permanent identity. It may have shaped you. It may have strengthened you. It may have exposed what needed to change. But it does not get to define every chapter that follows. If this message speaks to where you are now, write one final sentence. I am ready to receive. Let it be a commitment to clarity, not a demand that life obey you. Let it remind you that receiving well is active, grounded, and responsible. May you have wisdom for what deserves your yes. May you have courage for what requires movement. May you have peace when the right answer is no. And may you recognize that calm can be strength, not absence. You learned how to survive the wait. Now learn how to carry what comes after it. You are not only the chosen one in this story, you are the steward. Amen. It is sealed.